take them all the way in the Run Happy Santa Anita Derby.
Essential quality. What a finish. The champ.
It is Dynamic 1 and Vermonic. Dynamic 1 and Vermonic. A photo finish. Vermonic got there.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the first weekly fantasy update of the year. And Mike, I've got you here today, and we know it's just an excuse to talk about Derby horses, right? Like, we're going to talk about the fantasy league for 2 seconds and then talk Derby horses. So good to see you, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I would rather do on the first Tuesday in January than talk about some 3-year-olds.
I can feel the excitement coming out. Yeah. It's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. All right, so we'll do it. So we have a two-way shake, and that's what we'll get to first. Our background picture here is American Icon, a horse that won on debut for Todd Pletcher, looked pretty impressive. And so we have two teams that are going to try for him today: Paul Freebeers Withrow, and then Austin and Evil Stevels. So, Samit, you've got the random generator ready here to kind of pull out a name. So we'll pull out a name. We'll see who gets this horse, and then we'll kind of give our thoughts about him. So you want to pull that up there?
Sure. Sounds like a plan. How many times am I going here?
I mean, how many times do you think we should go?
I would say 3 is the minimum and 5 is the maximum.
Okay.
So you get the pick, Dictator. 3, 4, or 5.
Let's go 4. Nice even number.
All right, here we go. So I'll hit randomize.
Okay.
There's number 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And the winner is Paul Freebeers.
So Freebeers wins it. Freebeers wins the new way we're doing the shakes. So this is a brand new way we're doing it. I'm not pulling them out of a hat anymore. Samich says, no, you can't do that anymore. League's getting too big. You got to get sophisticated. So Paul Freebeers will get this horse. I think this is a horse he was really wanting right from the start, right when they broke the maiden. We were texting back and forth with him. So, yeah, Paul gets American Icon. Let's talk about him real quick, Mike. We both could have obviously went in for this horse. What did you think of this horse's debut? Kind of, did you and Magic think about maybe claiming this horse?
I mean, he looked good on debut. No, we didn't really consider claiming American Icon. And I get it. I mean, this is a son of Gunrider. It's a Pletcher Windstar horse. So they're like the intangibles are all there from that perspective. But the number didn't come back great. I don't think that you're seeing the best horses so far down at Gulfstream Park. And so I'm not overly impressed with the time that he debuted either. The day after Christmas isn't generally when you're showing out big horses. So we'll see what he does. I do expect him to go to a stakes race next. So I don't hate the claim, but it'll be interesting to see what the progression is here. I would rather take in some of the horses we saw over the weekend versus American Icon personally.
Yeah, I'll ask you about those in a second as well. I should mention Got Thunder is the horse that Paul has dropped. So Got Thunder has been dropped second in another maiden at Santa Anita. So he's still a maiden. And I guess they decided to drop. That number came back pretty low as well in that maiden special weight. Yeah, let's talk about the horses at Gulfstream. Simplification won the Mucho Macho Man for Antonio Sano. The horse earned a 90 buyer, which is higher than American Icon earned by double digits, actually. The horse got everything his own way on the front end, but kind of what were your thoughts of Simplification this weekend?
Well, we now have 2 good efforts and 2 poor efforts from Simplification. So it's a little tough to figure out exactly what we got there. But this is a horse that I would personally rather take than American Icon, for instance. I think this one is you're going to see in all the Florida preps at this point. Has proven he can get it done. He can get it done on the front end. And you're going to get a shot at some Derby points where we're not positive exactly what we're going to get from American Icon yet. And Pletcher's got a couple in his barn that he's already using. But this weekend, these first preps, you're generally not seeing the best horses in them. The points levels aren't as high up. You're not guaranteed a Derby spot for winning any of those races. So you don't see the best of the best. I think, for instance, New York, you definitely didn't see the best crop up there at Aqueduct this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll go to that one. Courvoisier wins that race. I think he just finished this morning to the wire. It was a pretty slow race. Listen, pedigree's there for that horse, but I mean, that's not one anybody I think really was thinking about claiming, right? That horse is just too slow.
And that's the problem right there. And they went 45 and change the opening half mile, and the horse was able to hold on pretty well. But I mean, they went like 27, I think, for the last furlong, something very, very slow. And the New York circuit's just kind of a little odd. I mean, they run a mile around one turn, then we're going to go to a mile and an eighth around 2 turns, then cut back to a mile around one turn for the 50-point prep. And I mean, like, for instance, I felt like the big loser this weekend was actually Rockefeller out in California, because you found out he was kind of the blocker out there for Newgage versus the A horse. But you look at that 1 mile, 1 turn race at Aqueduct where you're going to have 50 points on the line. That makes a lot of sense for Rockefeller out there. You might see a Baffert going to New York for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Rockefeller went over and won the Nashua at Aqueduct earlier. I guess last year now, as we're into 2022. Went out in November of 2021 and won that race. That race did not come back very strong. Nobody's won out of that race after. You mentioned Newgrange. He is owned in the Fantasy League, but we'll talk about it for just a second here. He was the most impressive to me, a 2-turn win. And like I said, kind of looked like you got 2 Bafferts. They both have speed, and then decide, let the one that's better go out and set the easy pace, and I'll block. So what were your thoughts on Newgrange?
That was impressive. I mean, look, Velasquez, Baffert, I think we've seen that story before, right? And we know how it ends. We saw Authentic and Medina Spirit both go wire to wire in the Derby and end up having solid 3-year-old campaigns. This seems to be that horse for Baffert again. Obviously, it's a little early, and he's got a pretty deep barn from the 3-year-old perspective. And we're still, you put out a great video highlighting kind of what's going to happen with Baffert here. We're still trying to figure out what exactly is going to happen with Baffert. I think we both believe that you're going to see at least one Baffert in the Derby, and that at some point you're going to have to allow him to score points here. So be interesting to see how this plays out. But right now, he would be one of those that I would definitely have in a short list of horses I'd be interested in betting on the Derby.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll ask you kind of to follow up on that before I ask about Dash Attack. It seems like whether the horse that you believe, let's say on January 3rd, most years ends up being your actual pick or not, most years, for me personally, I've got a good idea of, okay, here's 2 or 3 horses that I'm excited about, and we'll see how it plays out. But I've got a decent idea of what I want to do, or at least a thought. This year, I am just clueless on who that horse is. I'm really searching for it right now. Are you kind of in that same boat, or do you have a strong opinion right now as of January 4th?
Oh, I'm 100% in that same boat. I think this year's class is a mess, and the Bob Baffert thing adds just another wild card into it, because you can't really at this point select any of his horses saying that would be your pick, because you have no idea if they're going to even score points or if they're going to switch barns or how that's going to affect. You have horses like Jack Christopher, who's not proven around 2 turns, who is going to be your second choice in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You have Command Performance, who maybe is good, and then you have a bunch of McPeaks, which will get you to Dash Attack here. And I'm not betting Kenny McPeak in the Derby. No, it's not happening. So what do you do?
It is pretty incredible. He does have Smile Happy. He has Rattle and Roll, 2 horses that look pretty good. And like I said, we'll get to Dash Attack, the last horse we wanted to talk about today. The horse is 2 for 2, both wins at Oaklawn, both over sloppy track. Maybe that's a red flag. But yeah, what's the deal? Is Dash Attack any good, number one? And are these McPeak horses going to progress and be players in the Derby?
So I'm guessing no on the second half of that. Just be general, thought there. But yeah. Man, I watched that race this weekend, and to me, I saw a lot of King Fury in it, where it just felt like that race absolutely collapsed on the front end. You had the outside horse Ben Diesel who had to fire out of the gate. You had Ruggs who went right with him. The two of them set a pretty wicked pace. No one really held on from the front end perspective. And I felt like it was just a dream trip for Dash Attack to be able to catch a collapsing pace, go right on by. And it kind of reminds me of King Fury, what he did at Lexington last year in Keeneland, to be able to get the win right before the Derby as well. And then King Fury got a bunch of hype and never really progressed from there. I think this is more of the setup than anything else. I think the sloppy track also now 2 for 2 is a concern there, because we don't know how well he'll run on a fast track. Although, it does rain every now and then in Kentucky in the first Saturday in May. So maybe it helps him there. But Dash Attack to me would be the least interesting of the 3. I would be more interested in Smile Happy or Rattle and Roll at this point.
Yeah, and as Dennis says, he can bet Rattle and Roll. He definitely looked good, so we'll see what happens with him as they progress. And it's a horse that had a little bit of an injury, now coming off of it, so we'll see how he comes back. But yeah, I'm with, the Smarty Jones was either a bunch of horses that aren't very good or a bunch of horses that just drew weird posts, like you said, and got weird trips. I'm not sure either one. The overall arc, and even with American Icons, we kind of round it back to him and wrap this up. Nobody's running fast from a buyer speed figure perspective right now. There's nobody popping out at all. And it almost sets up, if somebody develops and can jump out, that maybe ended up being a Derby where there's a heavy favorite. Like, that's almost where I'm at. Or it could be a Derby like what we have right now currently, where it's just kind of a mess. So yeah, I guess, to summarize this all up, we're both, just not on anybody. I always do this though, to end these shows. I did it all year last year. Derby was today. Who would you pick to win the Derby?
Oh, geez.
See, last year was so easy because we all just either said Essential Quality or Life is Good. And even though neither one won, it seemed like
Yeah.
easy answers.
Yeah, at this point, it was much easier than that. Like, you had essential quality and the best Baffert, and it was clear who the best horse and the best Baffert were at that point. Now it's wildly unclear.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I guess New Gage would be my pick right now. Like, if I had to pick someone and I was allowed to pick a Baffert, I would lean toward New Gage. If we've seen, I wasn't overly impressed with the juvenile win that we saw. I can't remember his name right now. I'm sure you will, out of the
Corniche,
other Baffert. Yeah, Corniche. And so if I'm going to say that wasn't that great of a win, I'm going to go with the horse that I saw recently that I thought ran well wire to wire. I loved New Gage's first start, going 22 and change, 44 and change to be able to win. I mean, that's what I want from a Baffert, is a horse that's going to be on the front end and re-break. And it seems like that's what we got here. So I would lean that direction. But man, I mean, I'll hear your pick and then I have a question for you.
I'm going to agree with you. I think that's the one right now. And listen, I could see this changing next week. We might sit here and go, no, okay, we're out. But right now, I think he makes the most sense. I'm with you. I did not like Corniche as in the juvenile. We talked about that race so much, when we were at Del Mar, and it's like, God, this race sucks. And it seemed like he was there to be beaten, and just nobody would really close. So, well, go ahead. What's your question?
Plus 300, minus 250. Plus 300, yes. Minus 250, no. Have we seen plus 250, plus 300, no. Minus 250 is yes. Has the Derby winner already run? So 3-1 says he's not run yet. Minus 250, he's run already.
The problem is history says, it's happened once in many, many, many years. And that one time is very questionable, the legitimacy of the horse, let's say. The odds are too good. I'm going to take the higher price. I'm going to say no, just because with this crop, how bad it is.
Yeah.
It seems like an opportunity, right? And I don't want to bet low odds on these horses. I would take a flyer. What about you?
I would tend to take a flyer right now too. And part of that is just because, like, if I'm taking a Baffert horse that may not be able to get points, and if we're like, we still don't know how that'll play out. If no Baffert horse ends up in the Derby, I would much rather have the unraced Pletchers, the unraced Browns that we're going to see debut down there. And there's a couple Bafferts that are over $1 million that we haven't seen run yet either. So you've got, $4 or $5 million plus horses that we haven't seen that are going to debut for big trainers over the next month. We've seen, you mentioned the progression and how if a horse develops into this, we could easily see one of those 3-star Derby winners.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think this year could be definitely for sure. We'll get this question. I think it's a good one. If the Derby was the day, what's the lowest odds you'll take on a horse? And we can even say, if this crop progresses and it's kind of exactly what it is, maybe there's different names, but it's like everybody's running really low buyers and they're kind of similar. What's the lowest you will take on a horse in the Derby with that kind of situation?
I mean, if I'm betting to win, probably 10-1. Because you have a 20-horse field, you're going to assume that there's going to be some traffic trouble for a lot of these horses. You're going to have multiple speed horses based on what we've seen. I mean, if the Derby were today, you're seeing Simplification, you're seeing New Gage, you're seeing even Cavassier, who went out there in 45 seconds. There's multiple horses that want to be on the front end. That means you're not going to get an easy lead, which means you're probably looking at pace collapse horses or horses that are going to come from the middle pack. If you're doing that, you need a price. I mean, you can't be playing those at 3-4-1 and expect to be able to make money long term at a 20-horse field. Yeah,
that's just the thing. Like New Grange, for example, that's who we're picking as of now. I don't want to. I hate even saying that because we're not really. But I forced you to say it, and I forced myself, and we both picked him. But it's like he has to progress a ton, and then maybe we'd take him at a short price. But if he runs an 88 next time and an 88 the next time, we're not betting him at 4-1 in the Derby. Like, that's just not going to happen. So yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be interesting. We as we sit right now, there is so much to be decided. Where last year it's less like, if these horses stay healthy, they're probably the ones. So tune in to Racing News throughout this Triple Crown Trail. We'll have a ton of content like always on it, and we'll try to figure this out one race at a time. We got a little 2-week lull for the Derby, and then we get right back last weekend in January all the way through April, just week after week with this. So thanks everybody for joining us today. We will be right back here next week with another Derby update. And Mike, thanks for joining me as well. And we'll see you guys throughout the week.